Welcome back, everyone. We're on lesson 4 of The Way of the Heart, the first part of the Christ Mind trilogy of The Way of Mastery. We've been getting into the subject for the first time of desire. And Joshua was talking about desire in a very different way from the way a lot of spiritual teachings might talk about it, about the essential nature of desire and how important it is, how it's essential to creation, and it's how essential it is to our existence. So there's a paragraph. It starts with, "For I say well unto you." We'll be starting there. But just inviting you to take a nice deep breath, bringing attention to the breath, switching into what will be familiar to you by now, into observer mind. Need only take a second or two. Just really become aware of the breath entering the body and gently exiting the body. That quickly you can become aware of yourself as an observer instead of one just reacting to things unconsciously as you go through the day. A crucial transition into what we call observer mind or higher mind or Christ mind. Okay, starting from the text. "For I say well unto you, that if the Father had not desired to extend love, you would never have come into existence. Your very sense of awareness of self is the result, the effect of love. The very same love that has birthed the sun and the moon and all of the stars and every dimension upon dimension upon dimension of creation. That very love that desired for that love to be extended is the very source from which you have been birthed. As you know yourself to be, then, you are the effect of God's desire to extend love. Therefore, when someone asks you, 'Oh, who are you?' please do not give them a name. Do not say, 'Well, I was born in a certain town in a certain part of the planet.' Don't tell them you are a Democrat or a Republican or a communist or an atheist or a Catholic. Tell them the truth. Who am I? I am the extension of love in form. I have never been born. I will never taste death. I am infinite and eternal. I shine forth as a sunbeam to the sun. I am the effect of God's love, and I stand before you to love you." Now that will raise eyebrows. It will also transform your world. For it is time to stop seeking Christ outside and start choosing to take responsibility for being Christ incarnate. Desire is everything. Just take a moment right now, let the body relax, and imagine that you could move back from being the actor in the play of your life to being the director and the producer. And if you're sitting in your laboratory, your studio, and you're editing the story of your life, and you're looking at all your little clips of film from the time you were birthed, the time you were in kindergarten, the time you first fell in love, the time you first decided to go to a movie, the time you went off to college, the time you took a job or this job or that job, or you moved to another physical location. And look closely and see if it is not true that for every action you have ever done, for every decision you have ever made, after trying to analyze it all, is there not underneath it the energy of desire? For in truth you do not lift the body from your couch to go to the refrigerator without the desire to eat. Something calls you into a field of action, an expression of action. It is desire. No one enters into an intimate relationship without the energy of desire. For who two have ever looked upon one another and said, "I don't feel any desire whatsoever, but let's get married, have children, and raise a family"? Desire. Desire is that energy which brings forth all waves of creation out of the depth of the ocean itself. And yet, who of you has not felt conflicted about desire? I'm going to interrupt in the middle of this paragraph. Just to be really clear here, Joshua was linking desire with all good things, basically. All life, love itself is expressing desire. It's not neutral. It's not doing something. It's not, returned to a amorphous oneness in which isn't moving. Love is extending itself, and the thing that is driving that extension is desire. That's the way things are. God desires to extend love. Love desires to extend itself. So we're being set up for a very different take on desire than a lot. Some spiritual practices, all your suffering comes from desire. That's not what they're saying here. They're not saying you need to get rid of your desire. They're saying desire is absolutely essential. Desire's good. It's the thing which has created us and created life and all good things. It's the extension of God's love. God has desired to extend love, and that is where we come from. Desire is that energy which brings forth all waves of creation out of the depth of the ocean itself, the depth of the mind of God. And yet, who among you has not felt conflicted about desire? Who among you has not been taught that desire is evil? Who among you has not been taught not to desire to be great? Who among you has not been taught that the desire for material comfort is some sort of a blot on the spiritual path? Look well within your soul and see if this is not true. Have you not feared at times the welling up of desire within you? For well as I look upon your plane, there are many who become paralyzed with fear just because they desire to have a bowl of ice cream. So afraid are they that if they give in to that desire, something in the ice cream will cause their body to bloat and their brain to cease functioning. I am going to stop at the end of this paragraph. I know I'm breaking it down very, very minutely. But he's talking about this energy of life itself, this hugely powerful, expansive, loving energy, desire, God's desire, the desire of love to extend itself. And then it starts talking about our experience. He's talking about how we are conflicted with this energy. And here is where we are what is called missing the mark. We'll continue with the text. And for those of you in intimate relationship, what you call marriage, a commitment of some kind, there seem to be many levels of commitment in your world. Each has its own definition. How many of you have not carried the belief, taught you by the world, that if you feel an energy of desire welling up within yourself when you look upon someone who is not your partner, that somehow you have sinned against God? How many of you, then, do not know the experience of trying to rein in the 10,000 horses, so sure that if you gave in to feeling desire, that everything would run amok? And your attempt to keep your life structured and rigid and predictable would collapse. What you call all hell breaking loose, And yet I say to you, would you exist if God had feared the desire to create and extend love by forming you, at the same time giving you intimate freedom of choice? Without desire, look around. Not only would you see nothing, there would be nothing to do the seeing. Everything is the effect of desire. Come then to see that desire is not evil. It is not to be feared. It is to be mastered. Mastery is not control. For control, the need to control, is an effect of the energy of fear, not love. Mastery of desire comes when you recognize that you are safe to feel whatever wave of desire might come up through your consciousness, because you decide whether you will act on it or not. You will bring it into the field of manifestation or not. The power of choice is the one power that can never be taken from you. You already have perfect mastery of it, because nothing you ever experienced comes to you without your decision to allow it into the field of manifestation. Come then to feel that desire is something welling up from the depth beyond yourself, that can be looked at with perfect innocence and with the wonder of a child. And that very act of turning to allow and welcome desire is not something that will sidetrack you from the path of awakening, but will indeed take you vertically, if you will, into the heart of God. End of paragraph. Wow, so this is a crucial relationship. The relationship between ourselves and our desire. It says this, to me, an essential sentence. Come then to feel that desire is something welling up from the depth beyond yourself. So desire, he's talking about, really says it brings you into the heart of God when you embrace it. Desire will indeed take you vertically, if you will, into the heart of God when you turn to allow and welcome desire. That is an extremely different approach from those who are saying desire should be overcome or blocked or transmuted or some such thing. And it says when you turn to allow it and welcome it. So here's an essential teaching and practice in the way of mastery. Turning to allow and welcome desire with a recognition that you have the mastery, you have the power to decide what you are going to do about these feelings. Mastery of desire comes when you recognize that you are safe. Mastery of desire comes when you recognize that you are safe. Safe to feel whatever wave of desire might come up through your consciousness. You're safe to feel. Mastery comes when you realize you are safe to feel whatever arises through your consciousness, because you decide whether you will act on it or not. You're safe because you get to decide whether you act on it or not. And you already have perfect mastery over it, because nothing you ever experience comes to you without your decision to allow it into the field of manifestation. Back to the first axiom. This is really rich material. It's kind of navigating how we've separated from ourselves and starting to give some clues about how we might get back. Back to the text. Come then to feel that desire is something welling up from the depth beyond yourself. Again, it can be looked at with perfect innocence and the wonder of the child. And that very act of turning to allow and welcome desire is not something that will sidetrack you from the path of awakening, but will indeed take you vertically, if you will, into the heart of God. For if you are ever to create as God creates, you will need to heal your conflicted perceptions about desire. You will need to transcend that energy of fear. Expression fueled by desire, full expression without fear. That's the goal. Conscious creation, extension of love without fear. There are many who call unto me, back to the text, there are many who call unto me and pray. There is not an hour in your time frame in which there are not many upon your plane, someone on your planet, that are praying to me, that want their hearts to be filled with Christ. And yet at that same time, they are scared to death of an energy that wants to move, because they have been taught to fear, to suppress desire. Desire is like the liquid of life that moves through the stem of the rose and allows the petals to radiate with glorious color. And when you block the flow of desire, the petals cannot be nourished. Death begins to occur, death of the heart, death of the soul, lifelessness. If you were to walk down one of your city streets and truly look into the eyes of everyone you see, and everyone that hears these words has had this experience, would you not recognize that death seems to have already made a home in the minds of many that are living? Death of dreams, death of hope, death of worthiness, death of playfulness, death of true power, death of union with their source and creator. Healing, then, requires the willingness to feel desire, to see it as good, to see it as holy. Let's write that one down. Healing requires the willingness to feel desire, to see it as good, to see it as holy. Does that not mean that if you feel a desire that it might not become twisted by the egoic patterns in your mind? Of course not. There's always that possibility that desire will be twisted to meet the needs of the egoic mind within you. But rest assured, if it does, who's done it? You. Always within you, you know that desire is good, but you suppress it. Always when desire comes forth, those times when you've let it become twisted into serving the goals of the ego, rest assured, you knew perfectly well what you were doing, and you were the decision maker. You have learned, therefore, to fear desire, because that fear is the effect of fearing yourself, and that is what cripples you. That is what cuts off the creative flow. That is what leads to everything your world knows as the multitude of psychological diseases, an unwillingness to trust oneself, an unwillingness to love oneself, the belief that the desires that move up through your beingness are somehow evil and dark. If only you could stamp them out of your being, you could remain in control and everyone would like you because you've conformed to the smallness and the littleness that is worshipped in human consciousness. Listen now to the next axiom we would give you. The only relationship which holds any value at all is your relationship with God, your creative source, the depths of the ocean. End of paragraph. So Jeshua is talking about, first of all, another axiom, fourth, I believe, and that is this: the only relationship which holds any value at all is your relationship with God, your creative source, the depth of the ocean. He said just a few paragraphs ago, the very act of turning to allow and welcome desire will take you into the heart of God. The act of turning to allow and welcome desire will indeed take you vertically, if you will, into the heart of God. So turning and welcoming desire is essential to the only relationship that matters, which is your relationship with God. Therefore, our relationship with desire is one of the most important aspects of the spiritual path. Continuing from the text, after the only relationship which holds any value at all is your relationship with God, your creative source, the depth of the ocean. And right away the mind wells up. But what about my maid? What about my parents? What about my children? What about the President of the United States? What about the Postmaster General? You will come up with a million examples of relationships that surely have great importance. The only one which holds value is your relationship with God. For when that is in alignment, all of your creations, your choices for relationship, and how you will be within them will flow effortlessly from that alignment. Therefore, seek first the kingdom, and all those things will be added unto you. Do not try to create a rose by starting with the petals, but nourish the roots, and the flower must blossom. And if you are to be in right relationship with your Creator, it is absolutely necessary to correct your perception and relationship with the energy of desire. And it begins by releasing your judgment of it in all forms, for again, you can only be in love or fear. You can only be in innocence or judgment. Love and innocence are of the kingdom. Fear and judgment are of illusion. We're going to stop there because this is going at a rapid pace in terms of content, even if not in terms of page count. let's just leave it here and contemplate between now and the next time this issue of desire that Jeshua was talking about, how it might be really radically different from the way you've been taught to think about it in church, for example, or other places. Turning and welcoming, allowing and welcoming desire brings us into the heart of God. That relationship is the only relationship that matters. Why? Because it puts right all other relationships. All other relationships become blessings, extensions of love, capacity to create together, not the dysfunctional, unhappy, special relationships, which are often the ones that we're putting ahead of our relationship with God. But something really here that's fascinating is he's talking about allowing and welcoming desire. You could suggest that it's when we don't do that that we get into trouble in relationships, in our relationship with everything, with people, with places, with experiences, with what we're doing with our lives. Everything, the energy and essence of desire is our connection with God in many ways. Desire means from the heavens. Yeah, you break it down, D-E-S-I-R-E in French, of the Lord. Desire. Not something evil to be avoided, but rather an energy to be embraced and mastered in our relationship with it. Not judged, because judgment creates separation, conflict, and pain, but loved. Therefore, we're on a mission, a mission from God, as they'd say in the Blues Brothers. But it is a mission from God. And the mission itself, the desire to awaken and to return to a deeper truth, that's desire too, the desire to be on this path and to study these teachings. Called love calling itself back to itself through wisdom, through sharing, through dedication, commitment. So just a beginning of sort of contemplation about, desire. Wow, they're really talking about that differently. If I learn to master my relationship with desire, I won't be judging it, I'll be welcoming it, and see what kind of world that starts to create. All right, thank you. We'll finish for now, and look forward to talking with you again. This is David Chalk.